Unfortunately, Minister, I missed your opening statement, so I might ask things and say things that you've already answered, so forgive me. I want to congratulate you, though, on how you have dealt with this. It's, I think, probably one of the best outcomes we could have hoped for. But as well as congratulating yourself, I think a huge congratulations is owed to Catherine Corliss, and there's no doubt that she has become a national hero for her work on this. And I do believe that it sort of reaffirms for me, and I've noticed this around with a lot of young people, that there's a renewed interest in our history, our recent history in particular. A lot of it is dark, a lot of it since the War of Independence and how the state formed after that, and all of the awful things that are emerging. But there is a renewed interest in it, and I think our population will keep an eye on how this progresses, because people are quite passionate about how this progresses and where it ends up. I understand, and this is why I preempted by saying I didn't listen to your opening remarks, unfortunately I had something else to do, that this Tuam Survivors Network are calling for an inquest into the deaths and a statutory obligation on the coroner to do so, and maybe you could come back on that. The big issue, though, the striking issue out of all of this, is the costs, and it shouldn't be. The striking issue should not be the cost, because whatever it would cost, it is worth spending the revenue, the money on, in order to ensure that we do get a full disclosure and that the survivors and the families around them are satisfied with the outcome. But the reason it's an issue is because of the paltry offer of 2.5 million from the Bon Secours order towards the overall cost of 13 or so million. And I think that is sort of echoes the legacy that the Church have given us over the recent, their recent failure to pay into the redress board, to fully acknowledge their responsibility. Of course, it was a shared responsibility with the state, but they seem very, very unwilling to share it in terms of actual pounds, shillings and pence, which in itself isn't evidence of regret or full retribution. But my God, it would go quite a long way to saying, yes, we acknowledge our responsibility and our role in this, and we're going to meet the state halfway on it. I think all of us in this House should condemn the Bon Secours order for their refusal to do so. And I think all the more so because the Bon Secours Health Service, the healthcare system, is the largest private healthcare provider in the country, and its profits have been enormous over the last few years. In 2016, it recorded pre-tax profits of 5.4 million. It employs over 3,000 people, and it's also in a private health system that is basically propped up by the public health system. That's what the Sláinte Care report has said to us. That is one of the consequences of the trolley crisis, of bed blocks, of all of the issues to do with waiting lists in this country, is that the private care system cuts through that and allows medicine to be provided on the basis of who can afford what, rather than on the basis of need. So I think, rather than just seeing this as a piece of history, which it is, a fitting tribute to it should be the dismantling of the preference of private care over public care in this country, because we do end up with understaffing in the public hospitals. We end up, as I say, with the historic waiting lists, and we end up with the trolley crisis in our A&E departments, and it is not in no small measure due to the prevalence of private health care. So those, I think, are outcomes that are not directly responsible for the Minister in her report, but I think they're outcomes that I think the population would desire, and that this state should see as being something that we want to move towards. And indeed, as I say, that's reiterated by the Sláinte Care report. Another outcome, however, should be the separation of church and state, because everywhere we turn, the legacy of the combination of church and state in our education and health is really very, very prevalent, and we still see a domination by the Catholic Church in our education system and in very many of the voluntary hospitals. And many of us in this House, probably even yourself, Minister, are concerned about the future of the National Maternity Hospital, which the state is giving over to St Vincent's to build at the cost of at least 360 million. And we still haven't seen the final I's dotted and T's crossed on that contract, and until we do, I think many of us will be extremely concerned about the genuine independence of the National Maternity Hospital removed from the ethos of the Catholic Church. So there are many concerns that are kind of indirectly connected with this report on the Tuam babies. But I do think the main thing here is to remember the babies, to remember those children, and to show them the dignity that they deserve. When we first talked about this, it was the day after the then Minister of Finance opened Barrington's Hospital for the Bon Secours Order in Limerick. And I remember being outraged that the two things were coinciding, and looking at the profits of Bon Secours and arguing at the time that their empire was built on the bones of the dead Tuam babies. And I still think that there's an argument for what I said then, but I do think that we need to, at this point, remember the babies, remember the children. The 79% of those in their first year who were recorded as having died in that facility. It's an absolutely shocking statistic, way above any other mortality rates in any other institution or any other aspect of Irish society. And I think that the one thing this House can do very effectively is to continue to call on the Bon Secours Order to carry at least half the costs of what the outcome here is. And I look forward to you keeping us posted as things develop with the excavations, with the reports, with the research, and just to say well done on the report, and to echo to the people of Tuam and to Catherine Corliss in particular for the fantastic work they have done in the memory of these people who've been treated so cruelly by Church and State in our horribly dark past.